Hey guys, and welcome to another installment of What's Next, this time focusing on patch 7.8. I really do appreciate it if you guys like this series, and judging by the views that it gets pretty consistently, I would judge that you do, so feel free to leave a like, subscribe, comment, just tell me how you think this could be better for you. Anyway, we're just going to dive right in. It's kind of a small patch. I like that. Easy to make. Why is it late then? It's because I thought it was the mid-season update and I was going to have to put more time into it. However, I'm still here for you, still going to read the patch notes. Xayah and Rakan just came out, which is kind of really interesting. Something I definitely want to talk about. I think I'm going to move that into a This Week in Bronze or What the Fuck Is This video. Not really for this. If you want to check out what they do, Riot always puts out a bunch of information and things regarding, the basic functions of their champions that they release. So feel free to visit those. In the meantime, we're just going to focus on patch changes and kind of the impact that they're going to have. First, Aatrox. They made him more jungle relevant, I guess. So his Hellbent on his passive now refreshes when fighting monsters, which is really nice. And then they upped his attack speed 10% at every rank. His W, his Bloodthirst, the life gain part of it, they upped it to 6.5% of Aatrox's missing health from that 5% that it was. So that's kind of something to look forward to. Kind of neat. I like it anyway. They're trying to make Aatrox more relevant, but overall impact on that is I think they're just doing a little too slow. I don't think he's going to be relevant just yet, but if they do it too fast, I can see where his kit could get him pretty far. Anyway, that's Aatrox. Moving on to Amumu. So with Amumu, what they did last time, and I was under the impression, a lot of other people I think were under the impression too, that his passive actually provided true damage. That wasn't the case. So it just calculated that damage after it was reduced by magic resist. Now they just made it straight up true damage at 10% rather than the 15%. To kind of match our expectations of what it was going to be and to balance that out, make it a little more healthy. And they also changed his W. Now does less percent health damage, up to 2% rather than up to 3% per second. Ivern. Overall impact. He's going to do what we thought he was going to do, but except he's going to do it just a tad bit better. So there we go. Ivern, his Brushmaker, so he can't hide dragons, barons, things like that with one bush on top of them anymore. He has to kind of wall his bushes around to bar off vision like a normal bush would do. So they kind of balanced that out. I like what they did with that. But again, not a whole lot to talk about here. Karthus, I decided, it took a long time to decide, we're not going to talk about it. It's really small. It's an impact that we're probably not going to see down here at Bronze. So we're just going to say Karthus did get a change. I'm going to say it's a tiny buff, but like I said, it's just so small. It's something we probably won't see an impact of down here in Bronze. Lissandra, her passive cooldown is actually reduced to 16 seconds. It starts at 18 seconds like where it was at all ranks, and now it has the ability to go down to 16 seconds. So there we go. I'm sorry, it goes down to 9 seconds. I saw it at levels, and I just assumed that it's actually, so it goes all the way down to half, which is really nice. So something to look forward to there. And they fixed a bug that caused the cooldown not to be reduced. So it still has some cooldown reduction. And it's at half at level 16, so that's kind of nice. And a pretty decent sized buff. Well, when I read it the first time, it was a lot less, but I can see that that's actually a really decent sized buff now. Her Q also got a mini buff. It went from, her ratio was 0.65 ability power, now it's 0.7 ability power. Again, just a muff. I think they're bringing Lissandra back into the mix of mid laners. She was pretty relevant last season. I don't think we've seen much of her at all this season, but she never really dropped in what she did, and she always did it well. So maybe just a little something to nudge us in the right direction, be playing Lissandra again. I like her. I think this buff is going to be pretty nice for her. Moving on to Malzahar, they downed his base armor. It's down 2 to 18. and his W, the Voidlings, only have 2 health, and they only grant 5 gold when you kill them. So a little less incentive, I guess, but it's just, I think, more to balance him as a support, seeing as we do see a lot more Malzahar support recently. So something kind of nice. That's Malzahar. It's nice for the opponents, I guess. Not so much for Malzahar, but less work for half the gold. I guess it kind of pays out. Anyway, moving on to Nautilus. So they downed his mana growth stat. So basically, every level he's not going to gain 0.7 mana regen growth. He's going to only get 0.5. So his base is still the same. It's just as he levels up, he's going to get less from leveling up in terms of mana regen. And they upped his E mana cost. That says Riptide, which is just the outward, I don't know what to call them. It's his AoE effect. They upped that to 90 mana at max rank rather than 80 mana. So I guess all in all, what they were trying to do there is just make it a little less spammable, give his top lane prowess in the early game just a little less prowess, make him a little bit more balanced of a top laner. He was the only counter, still is before rework, to Maokai. He has that really strong early game, and that's something that they just kind of balanced so he doesn't have such an advantage anymore. Ryze, they downed his cooldown reset on that, so it makes combos a little more smooth, a little easier. It was when they hit their targets, now it's when they cast spells. I wanted to talk about this one and not the Karthus one, just because I feel like this is more impactful, being as Ryze is more of a combo reliant champion, and making those combos more smooth definitely does impact Ryze in a very good way. So there we are. Moving on to Shen. He has his empowered attack bonus damage on that Q is now down by very good much. It's down 240 from 110 at max rank, so that's about 70 at max rank. And with that, however, his Q does do double damage to monsters, but it still has a cap. They kind of balanced it out, made it a little more wave cleary, a little less impactful against champions. His taunt, though, for fuck's sake, his E now costs less energy, and they increased the hitbox by 20. So, holy crap, they made his taunt a lot better. I don't know. That alone, I think they did nerf his ult. I guess we should talk about that before we talk about how just in awe I am of his taunt being good. But his cooldown is now up 40 seconds at max rank to 160. Makes it a little less spammable, a little bit less of a second teleport, I guess, to be able to impact the map in the way that he does in split push, and then still be a member of team fights. So they made that a little less impactful, and the shield is now down, and it scales up to just 10 less at max rank, depending on the health. So it's still pretty good. It's just a slight nerf, again, just so he can't have as much impact everywhere on the map all at once. Overall, his impact, I think making his taunt better is just an incredible buff to him. Having to play him a little different because you can't be in every lane at once is kind of a drawback. It's a nerf, but I think in the grand scheme of thing, when you make his taunt better, you increase the width, makes multiple person taunts easier. It just really helps Shen in a very big way. Granted, he doesn't do as much damage, but that's not really what he is. He's kind of a utility laner, and he's very much utility in team fights. So I think that's not that big of a change, and they increased the thing that people really like to play him for. So overall, wow. I'm very impressed, and looking forward to seeing Shenzhen getting fucked up by them for the rest of eternity, or until they change it. Anyway, moving on to Udyr. They kind of gave him a mini rework, something I wanted to talk about, because it is kind of a larger change for something just to put in a patch. I don't know with them changing tanks if they didn't want to include this in it because he's not a full tank and give people the wrong impression of him. But it is basically a mini rework. His ability costs are now down from 47 to 35. It's up early So it starts at 50, but it's down to 33. A little more spammable late game, a little easier to escape things. What they did with his Q, his Tiger Stance, is they removed his bonus attack damage. So his basic attacks no longer do as much damage. However, his first and third basic attack in Tiger Stance are strikes, Tiger Strikes, as they call them. Like, ooh, fun. Anyway, so it applies that stance's damage over time. And they downed that damage because it is over time. It was 230 over 2 seconds. Now it's down to 150 over 2 seconds. But it is over time a little more impactful, I think. And the more Tiger Strikes against the same target's actually going to deal all of the remaining damage that the overtime effect was going to do. So it can kind of catch people off guard. I really like that down here because people aren't going to read into this too much. They're not going to think too much of it. So then all of a sudden Udyr hits you and you just lose, let's say, I don't know, 10% of your health and you don't know where it came from. It's easy to catch people off guard. I think it's going to have a pretty high impact in bronze. I'm pretty excited for it. His W, his Turtle Stance, he doesn't gain lifesteal in Turtle Stance, which is actually pretty shitty. I'm a little disappointed in that. However, again, they're doing his first and third because Riot loves first and third basic attack abilities. His first and third attack are going to heal him for 2.5% of his maximum health, increasing up to 5%, and that's based on his missing health. So, you know, between the Q and the W, you can not only take away someone's health bar without them realizing it, but then you can also heal and catch them off guard in that way. I think Udyr has just become a really great low elo champion because there's just a lot of catching off guard. People aren't going to know really what to do with that, and as long as you can catch enough bronzies off guard at a time, you're going to be golden. You're going to be able to really wreck. So Udyr in low elos, keep an eye out. Keep these things in mind so it doesn't catch you off guard, so you can be a little more informed. But that's all the champions that we have. They definitely did a lot more in this patch. I think they're just appealing more to the filthy caches in this patch. They changed ARAM, Howling Abyss, and then also Twisted Treeline. I think the biggest one here is they took away Ancient Coin, Relic Shield, Spell Thief's Edge, and Cull. So you can't gain health or gold as quickly, but they kind of they just didn't want the gold scaling as much. Yeah, the health relics you don't get as much. I'm not going to read through all of this. If you play a lot of ARAM, I highly encourage you to do so. 7.8 patch notes right on the league website. Great to look forward to. But I did want to bring those items up to you. If you do play a lot of ARAM and you're looking for them, they're not going to be there. If you want to look at the itty bitty details about all the itty bitty details, then you can definitely go ahead and read those notes. Howling Abyss, it looks like basically the same thing. Yeah, not so much as in removed items and the same thing, but they just really kind of balanced it to be more of the game mode that they wanted it to be in 3v3s. Again, if you want to read into those tiny details, I highly encourage you to do so. Patch 7.8. Change to masteries. Storm Raider Surge, they just don't show anything anymore. Oh, it has a louder visual fit, so you actually know better when Storm Raider Surge happens rather than not knowing or kind of having to guess. So it's a louder visual effect, it's easier to see, easier to know when you actually proc a Storm Rage. So there's that. Moving into the jungle. Krugs are going to return back. It's not a big deal. And Rift Scuttler just comes out slowly. So there we go. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's some client updates, some good old rotating game modes in here. I'm not going to cover those because I don't feel like they're that important. If you care about them, you can definitely go and read them yourself. Karma looks like she's got an upcoming skin. Oh, it came out this one, the Conqueror Karma, and Cosmic Blade Master Yi. So those are kind of cool looking skins. check them out. Otherwise, I think that's it for this What's Next. Thanks for bearing with me, and thanks for dealing with my lateness. Sorry that I didn't get to read these in a timely fashion, but like I said, laziness prevailed on that one. Look forward to that Xayah and Rakan video I have coming out. Maybe a little bit of gameplay thrown in there as far as they're concerned. We're going to kind of talk about them, see what happens there. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching to the end. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, see where you want the direction of this series to go, or a couple other things. But definitely let me know. I appreciate it. Anyway, thank you, and I will catch you hopefully tomorrow, but definitely sometime soon.